Hello, my name is Karen Murris. I'm Professor of Early Childhood Education at the University of Oulu and also Emerita Professor of Education at the University of Cape Town in South Africa. And the title of my presentation is also the title of a paper. It will be published soon, Children's Geographies, if the last kind of version is accepted. And it's called "This is Not a Photograph of Zuko, How Agential Realism Disrupts Child-Centered Notions of Agency in Digital Play Research." Now, within 10 minutes, I can only just give a tiny bit of a flavor. So I will flick through some slides to give a sense of the structure of this paper, but I can't really go into any depth, maybe in the 5 minutes in discussion, but it is just to give you an idea of what this paper is about. The key question was already at play when we use certain concepts such as human, child, play, etc. And the way this article does it is by returning to data to a very large project that we finished in 2020 with the University of Sheffield, and I was PI of the South African part of that study, and we returned to data, or I returned to data in this paper that was published in a report, and you can find it on the LEGO Foundation site, their website. Now, the South African study really took place, as you can see on the right-hand side of this Times cover, in an informal settlement. Most of the children that we researched with lived in informal settlements. This was the research team, and one person in particular, Lucia here, was working with the child that features in this article, and his name is Zuko. That is a pseudonym. It was the part of the qualitative part of this study, and in this particular paper, I offer a non-representational reading of this particular image. And so it doesn't represent, it doesn't stand for, signify something in the world. So how can we read in a non-representational way using Baradian, the idea of the phenomenon, not as an object, but as a phenomenon, according to Karen Barad's agential realism. So that's really what this article is about, and the difference that makes. And here is, of course, the book that most people refer to when they use or adopt agential realism. But I also, in this article, very much draw on Barad and Gandorf as a very, very good interview with Barad. In that is from 2021, as well as an interview with Barad by Malu Yurskia and colleagues in a book on agential realism. And that has really shifted a lot of my ideas about how to do these kind of analyses, where we disrupt and never can get away with, out of, or whatever these binaries between nature, culture, mind, body, world, word, human, other, but in particular child, adult. So very much the analysis that this paper offers is akin to African philosophies like Ukama, Ubuntu, and young children's philosophies, in particular animism, which is not really paid attention to sufficiently, I think, in the post-humanist literature. So it's very much transdisciplinary research, and moving away from the mainly social, cultural lens that is offered by research in the humanities and the social sciences. So the report that you can find and already published is very much humanist yeah, it's a humanist report in the sense that it really looks, or focus on the adult humans, and it focuses on, on people's ages, on their work, their qualifications, the technology they have, their likes, their dislikes, their abilities, disabilities, etc. So, and you can see also how then data is created because it jumps out of what we would normally expect. So in this case, Zuko turns the camera to the researcher, and it becomes the icon of this project because it's such a meta. He shows so much competence in doing that by taking on the role of the researcher, which of course is a representational interpretation of this data. And why also did it struck us, because we very much use a developmental apparatus. As you can see here, it's very easy to use this version of the Lego Foundation of learning through play, and what are the experiences that we can put towards a further developed notion of play, and what's involved in that. And what you can see here, that Zuko feels a sense of accomplishment. He's very much invested in the experience. He's deliberate about the changes that he's making by putting these Lego bricks in this particular way. And he shows how the experience is relevant for him. And he's playing collaboratively with the other researcher. Now, this is very much a developmental apparatus, and I really refer to this as a way of, well, what actually when we use an apparatus like that is already given before the analysis even starts, and is very much an agency is understood in learning through play as a process that is in the child and is mediated by adults, as scaffolding and another writing about how the nature culture binary really works to give a particular way or a particular theoretical position about education as anyway, I can't go into that. But also, what I pick up very much in this article, how Bandura's concept of agency, about self-efficacy, and the Darwinian non-teleological notion of development is already assumed as something that is always intricately related in making judgments about agency or no agency in children's play. Very much the human is outside the system and in control of the causal effect of changes. I've seen now that I've got very low battery, so I've got to really hurry this up. And that the human subject is separate from and transcends her environment and her relations with other humans and non-humans. And it is humans' advanced symbolizing capacity that gives them the power to shape their environment. So the material discursive analysis that I offer is very different, is thinking about what is this data doing, and how I also in my analysis really disrupt matters of scale between micro and macro, and so that when we see the human, that we see use human optics like the hand, but not think again about what actually constitutes human cells, and what is actually the difference between a human and a human, and what are the boundaries of human, a human as such. And so very much suggests that we should look past, beyond, and outside ourselves as humans, and how we can do that is by reading this photograph not as representation but as non-representation, so that we trace the elements in their specificity and infinitely. And I can't really say an awful lot about that other than that the toy is the plastic, that the materiality of brick and also the iPhone is an intricate part of the play experience, its hardness, the color, the smell, and their affordances. And so that the material itself is also political. It's not it is not dead and has to be made alive or needs humans in terms of agency. It's already intricately implicated, and that the data itself here is already enabled through the use of the materiality of the iPhone, and how rereading and rereading through technology makes it possible to trace the phenomena in this way. So I offer a few ways of tracing. One of them is looking at the environmental implications of the production, the material production, which is of course always material discursive, and inspired by Jane Osgood's article also about Lego, about the genderedness of this material production of Lego, and because the most of the factories that are actually in Mexico and in China use mainly female labor, and you can see the conditions under which these Lego bricks are being produced. And the durability of and the difficulty of replacing Lego bricks for a more sustainable alternative, and the difficulty of that is that the brick is what it is because it works the way it does, because it is so durable. So, you know, how do you, and the complexity of finding a way of replacing that is also durable, but more environmentally friendly. But also in the article, I look at other ways, transdisciplinary ways of tracing the phenomenon. And one of them is in looking at the aesthetics and how Lego is also used in very aesthetic ways for all sorts of artwork. And this is one example of this patchwork where you can see that in Leuven, which I looked up, of course, because of the conference, how Lego is being used to add something to this particular wall of a church in Leuven. So I conclude my paper really with the notion of responsible science, which draws on Haraway and Barad's work, is that if we want to do justice to the complexity of reality, that we need to look beyond the human and just a humanist analysis, because it reduces the way we understand the world by the way we are physically put together as humans, and there is much more going on in the world. And so in order to do justice to that complexity, which is also an ethical ways, we need to respond and allowing not only the matter to respond, but also young children themselves, which I explain in much more detail. Well, actually in detail, I haven't really talked about that yet, how children are completely invisible in very profound ways in research like this, because the apparatuses measure their competencies has not been at all developed with children, or even afterwards in the analysis be made available to children. And this is crucially important, especially when considering Black children living in resource-constrained environments. And in other writing that we're doing now as a South African team, we pay quite a bit of attention to the importance of that, of taking account of the particular geopolitical situation in which this research was conducted. I hope this has given some ideas for some sort of discussion, and I hope this inspired you to look out for this paper when it's published. And thank you for your attention. Thank you.